want to say thank you to Jason and our library IT team who's been helping us today. Thank you very much. And I want to once again say a big thank you to our graduate assistants, Yoni and Reese, and my colleagues in special collections for helping out with everything today. It's my pleasure to introduce the keynote for the day. SHAN Wallace is a nomadic, award-winning, interdisciplinary artist, activist, and image maker from Baltimore, Maryland. Yes. Wallace utilizes a range of mediums to weave narratives and imagine new stories. Rooted in image-making techniques such as photography, film, and collage, as well as in situ installations, these mediums serve as the foundation of her artistic practice. She has exhibited work internationally in galleries and museums, including the Baltimore Museum of Art, the Annenberg Space for Photography in Los Angeles, the National Museum of Women in the Arts in DC, the Museum of Contemporary African Diaspora Arts in New York, the Virginia Museum of Contemporary Art, the Peel Center, and NXTHVN, what is that, New Haven? Next Haven? In Next Haven, thank you. I should have asked before, in New Haven, Connecticut. Her work is held in both public and private collections in the United States, including the BMA, the Mint Museum, the Whitney Museum, and Johns Hopkins University, as well as in various private collections. SHAN lives and works in many spaces between Brooklyn, New York, and Baltimore, Maryland. And today, her talk is Not Lost Forever, but Waiting to be Found.
We made it. I made it. I drove from Pittsburgh this morning, so I made it. Thank you, Beth and Lindsay, for this opportunity. Thank you all for sticking around. That bio is very old. I'm not an activist. And so I'm just going to jump right into it. So this is a photograph of me and my grandmother, and these are my grandparents, Doris and Walter Harris. Everything I do starts with them. They raised me, they took care of me, and everything I feel like it starts with them and is in honor of them. And so we lived primarily in East Baltimore. People always ask me where I'm from. That's a really hard question because I say East Baltimore most times because my grandparents had a house there, but I lived in O'Donnell Heights. I lived up the Village. I was born in Park Heights, which to me is probably the gayest neighborhood in Baltimore. I'll get into that later. And so everything starts with them, and life with them was, they were born in the late 20s. So life with them was John Wayne movies, so many of them. All the Westerns, Southern recipes and dishes, and kind of like a very quiet, isolated life, because life is different when your grandparents raise you and compared to your parents. So my grandparents had already raised their children, so they were kind of hands off, which kind of gave me the freedom to live how I live, which I'm going to kind of talk to you about. So this is me in high school. I'm in 10th grade. I like to note the sidekick right here. I was in mid-text, and then I like to acknowledge the business casual at the top. Like I'm going to an interview or maybe in happy hour, and I don't really know why I have sunglasses on in school. But this is me. This is me kind of already into the gay scene in Baltimore. I growing up in different parts of the city, you're bound to live many different lives. I was very shy and kind of quiet, and I grew up most of the time playing AAU basketball, eating Southern soul food, and watching John Wayne movies and liking girls. And so it all kind of starts here. I used to I have a sister, we look like twins, but she's older than me. And so I would use her ID to get into the gay clubs at like 12. I wasn't drinking then, but I was like watching exotic dancers and kind of engaging in the things that my sister kind of did. So this is the face of the young stud dom in club buns and kind of running the gay streets of Baltimore, because this is a very gay city. So I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about, okay, here we go. I'm going to talk a little bit about the film. So I'm working on a film called Glory Days, and it's an exploration of LGBTQ nightlife history in Baltimore. I've been working on it for about 5 years. It's a very slow, timely process, and I'm very patient, and so I'm going to be at this for some time. And so my first visit to Club Bun, I met this girl I think I'm 13 at the time. I was gay in 6th grade. And I don't really have a coming out story, which is kind of like I was always a tomboy. My grandparents were very hands off. They didn't know what was going on. And they didn't really ask any questions. And I met this girl at Hammerjacks, which is on Guilford. And at this time, Baltimore Club Mix is like at its peak. And so in the parties, they would only, like at one point in like the 90s, early 2000s, they would only play house music. And maybe in like the 60s and 70s, they would only play kind of like soul music and disco. And so in a lot of the clubs, there was only club mix being played. And by then, Club Mix was so big, we would burn CDs and give them away. Like, we would buy CDs. And so Club Mix CDs and mixtapes were coming out like every day. And so I used to make a living in elementary school by burning them on a karaoke machine my grandmother gave me and selling them. And so high school, so I met this girl and she was kind of like doing the Club Mix dances at Hammerjacks, and I was like, oh, I like her. And we met and we, started hanging out, and she was like, have you ever been to Buns or Pride? And I was like, no. And she was like, okay, I'm gonna take you. So we caught a hack. If you don't know what a hack is, it's like if you see somebody outside doing this, they're catching a hack. It's like a unofficial Uber. And so we caught a hack and we get to Buns, and this is Baltimore Pride. And so Glory Days, especially in much of my presentation, is a very segregated story. This is primarily about Black people, because my experience being in the Black community in nightlife and Pride was very much so. Our Pride was the Pride at Buns. It wasn't until a few years, maybe like 2012, when they started having Pride by UB, is when I realized that there was these other things happening. There was the lunch in the park, and like this thing happened at the happening in this area, and like the parade. Like, so many of us did not know anything about anything with Pride other than Club Buns. And so that was kind of my intro to it from someone I was seeing. And I remember getting out of the car, and this is me, I'm like 14, I'm fresh on the scene, I'm fresh from Mondawmin Mall, got my polo decks on, my cargo pants, I'm like ready for the world. And I remember getting out of the hack and stepping into Pride and being like, where am I? Because you had never, if you grow up in Black communities in Baltimore, sometimes you rarely leave your zip code. Sometimes you rarely leave your side of the town. And if you do, it's to go to a destination. There's not a lot of exploring I experienced growing up. Like, I didn't go to Artscape until I was like 21 for the first time. And so it was like a completely different world. And I remember distinctively seeing, and I'm gonna use very binary terms because I'm kind of talking about this period, but I remember seeing this stud with these two women. She's kind of pulling them and they have on leashes. And I'm like 14, like, whoa, this is different. And so my kind of gay experiences started at Club Buns, which is a lot of people's experiences. Club Buns was like a home away from home. It was like the place, it was like kind of like every Black gay person's of a certain age first place to go. So this is a flyer from some of the parties. When I went, there used to be a bunch of dancers. You can get a meal from Club Buns. You can get a drink. It was kind of like, it was just all black. Like, you just saw different kinds of black. You saw black trans people, black punk people, people who are like black and ghetto, and like black and fabulous. So it was like a range of black people in Baltimore. And then this is just some of the flyers. I remember when Lil Mo came, and does anyone here remember when Lil Kim came to Pride? Lil Kim performed at Pride at Buns. And it was like this magical thing, but again, it was like, you only saw black people. And I never really saw white people or non-black people at Pride until Buns started to close, funding was getting lost, and they moved Pride in kind of like Mount Vernon. So my work started, my actual work and effort was materialized when I saw this. This is Buns being knocked down. And I remember I lived in Pigtown, and I remember going to the postal office right behind the second Lexington Market building off of Green, and I remember seeing there being signs like "Do not enter," and that it was kind of closing, and I was so disheartened. I was so sad. And then I went to the post office again and saw this, and I happened to have my camera, and so I recorded it. And I think that was the moment when I was like, this film has to happen. Not only that this film has to happen, this kind of archive and I guess like framework around collecting and preserving Black people's experiences in Baltimore, in gay Baltimore, needs to happen now, because it happens, but it's not, there are many people left out. And when I mean many people left out, I mean like the Black gay elders that often work with Ben, as well as like my generation of people. Okay, this one isn't working for some reason. Okay, it's okay. So Pooh, the woman that we just saw, she basically in the video was saying that her first gay club was Buns, because in the film, I asked everyone, what was your first gay club? And a lot of people say Buns. Some people, depending on when you kind of came out, I mean, I've been ripping and running the Baltimore streets since I was 12. So it's not unusual for me to say Buns, even though Buns was for a particular era, because they started to have problems with University of Maryland in the city, because ultimately University of Maryland bought the land that Buns was once on. But I look at Buns as a place that was, it just wasn't a monolith. It was all of these things. And so on the left-hand side is some material that I've digitized. So I've gotten a lot of material from promoters, the person, what's his, I'm forgetting his name. Leroy. Leroy used to throw gay nights at the Paradox. Now, if you are young and gay and queer before 2016 and you have not been in the Paradox, you missed a time. It was like our version of Studio 54. You like go, first of all, before you get there, it doesn't start till 12 o'clock. And so you would go to Buns first, pregame, have fun, and then you would go and get your life and do all of the things that you're interested in the Paradox. And the Paradox has such cultural significance in the East Coast. And so Leroy gave me all of these flyers, and I just happened to digitize them. And I also appreciate Buns having this discussion of Toni Morrison. Like, it was a place where you could go to talk about a book, to get a meal, to dance, to see your favorite dancer. It's also one of the venues, the Paradox and Buns, and really Club Buns. Ballroom in Baltimore started in Buns. And when I mean ballroom, I mean like Vogan, Pose, Paris is Burning. It started in Baltimore at Club Buns. That's where a lot of people became legends, or like you practice there so you can go to the bigger balls in New York where the girls are winning $10,000. And so Buns is like the very beginning for a lot of Black, queer, and gay people in Baltimore. Let's see.
I think the main, at the time
Oh
is my
no.
sexuality. So my first impression was, everybody in here gay. Everybody in here mess around. And that was my first like impression because I was just seeing a lot of people like me or like-minded like me.
So describe it. You said, I like you saying ghetto. Like, was it black? Was it super hood? Was everyone like free? Like, give me some descriptions of the club and the people there.
Okay. The club it was very like black. I guess it was the African American night, you know. Well, when that I went out, all I seen was black people. The energy was good. It was ghetto in certain type of ways because, you know, with the swag and the culture, you know, everybody, you know, it just brings up the hood in people. So it was a little bit of that, and I'm born and raised from the hood, so that got me hyped. And the music was good. And I always been.
So Marquise is a ballroom legend. He's an icon. He has dance classes, but he was introduced to ballroom through Club Buns. And there's this really beautiful connection between our marching bands and ballroom. And so he started because he saw his friends who were older than him in the marching bands. If you don't know much about our marching bands, I like to note that our city primarily does not really support our marching bands. So they do a lot of things like perform at funerals, perform at birthdays, perform whenever someone calls. And so, and most of the marching bands kind of like come from housing projects, and they just have these different kinds of lives. And so Marquis started his introduction to ballroom and understanding his sensuality and sexuality kind of happened at Club Buns. Okay. So the sound isn't important here, really. Oh, this thing is sensitive. So the sound here really isn't important, but this is what Club Buns parade looked like, the block party looked like. You can kind of see in the background that is the post office, and Club Buns kind of like had the whole block because they own like a couple buildings. And so seeing it knocked down just brought up so much. I was not here. This is kind of like in the early 2000s. I think this was maybe like 2 or 3 years before I went to my first block party, but this is material from this woman named Miss Queen Patty, who is this older trans woman who has like 20 years of material in DC. A bunch of drag balls, a bunch of just drag, but primarily like drag, but primarily black people. It's all on YouTube, and I happened to get in touch with her, and she was saying that she had a few videos from Baltimore, so this is just one of the videos. But Buns is just such an important place. I think that it deserves a monument because it was like the beginning for so many, I guess, like older millennials and like younger millennials like myself. So this is me in high school. And these are my gay friends. And so by this time, I'm like an old gay to my friends because they're like, you know, freshly out. We all graduated from high school. We grown now. We got jobs. I got a car when I was 16. So we were like, it was time to go. And because I had been going to Pride by this time, like 4 years, I was kind of leading the pack on like, this is what you do. The girls come at this time. We go at this place, wear this thing. And so I really, this was a change of scenery for me because by then I had understood gay nightlife in Baltimore and where to go. Also by this time, we were going to this place called 5 Seasons, which is in the shopping center across the street from the jail. Just recently, because the sign is still there, the 5 Seasons is an Ethiopian restaurant that we used to turn out every Friday. And I didn't realize that until maybe when I started working on this, because I went to where it is, and the building is used it's a medical center now, but the sign is still there. And so in the next clip, Camille, she talks about So Camille is a party. She was. I don't know if she still is, but she was a party promoter. She had a group called Alternative Union at Morgan, and they used to throw a lot of straight parties at the different venues. But Camille was like this straight up like dyke, and she at some point was like, "Yo, I want to do gay parties," but the owners of most of the places never wanted to give her a main night. So it was never a Friday night. It was never a Saturday night. It was like always like a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And it got to a point where there was somewhere to go almost every night. We would go to Uzo's on Sundays, Paradox on Saturdays, Buns on Saturdays. You could kind of go to Buns any day. And so Camille really talks about, and I'm showing you clips from the film, but Camille really talks about Baltimore not really respecting the gay dollar, the black gay dollar, and not really respecting and acknowledging black gay people. City as well as like club owners, because they gave her a lot of pushback when she wanted to have these gay nights and these queer nights on Saturday, Sunday, or Friday. And it wasn't until someone gave her an opportunity, maybe at there's a theater now that's on like Charles and like right not that far from the gallery. I don't know the name of it, but it's like between Baltimore, it's Calvert Street. Whatever theater that is, that used to be a club, maybe Red Velvet or the Velvet Rope, I believe. And the last time it was opened was when they opened it for Jay-Z when he came to tour with Justin Timberlake. But we used to party in there, and they gave her a night. And so by then she had some room to kind of talk about the income that she could bring the clubs and how much we was drinking and we was partying. I mean, we was kind of wild. And so I really appreciate Camille. And this is kind of like my entry to like parties that she used to throw at Club One, parties by this time, Hammer Jacks was closed. Sonar, which closed down because something was some money laundering thing allegedly. And so she would find these different clubs in these different places where we would have parties. And so this is one of the flyers. She used to have these like Pumps and Pistols kind of themed parties. You wear a certain color if you're like bisexual, if you wear a certain color if you're like a lesbian. This is me in the flyer. And we kind of threw this party together. And Club One now is like a huge apartment building. It's right where the farmers market is. And I remember this party was incredible, but by this time, Alternative Union and Camille had thrown so many parties, it was just kind of like clockwork. And she kind of brought over the college scene as well as like kind of like the black hood scene. This is another, I don't know where East Lexington, I can't remember where that is. Oh, Nations Lounge, never heard of it. But Camille spent a lot of time like really coming up with these themed parties, and we would go to them all the time. You said you went to the docks for the first time.
Yeah. Okay. I'm back.
Let's bring it back.
So my first gay club
This is
experience might
Camille.
have been the Paradox in high school, about 11th grade. I had gotten a new job. I was hanging out with my friends, and everybody was going out. So they were asking me did I want to go, and I wasn't a club person. I hung out and did other shit, but I wasn't a person that was like, oh, I wanted to go to a club, go to a party. So this was probably my first time hanging around other lesbians, like more than one, no, more than two. So they're like, all right, yeah, let's go to the party. So two of the girls that we was with was all right. They was looking nice, so I was like, I'm down, I'm going. So they was like, we going to the Paradox. And originally I know the Paradox for Friday nights. At Friday nights, that's mostly Baltimore club nights. That's when everybody, went. But then for Saturday nights, I had no clue about what that was.
So Saturday nights was every third Saturday was gay night, and it was open from 12 to 7 a.m. We stayed in there all day. And the Paradox didn't have any windows, so you didn't know what time it was, what was happening outside. It was kind of like one way in, one way out. But they had a courtyard. They had different parts. They had the main part, and then in the back, they had another building. And in between that building was like a basketball court and like an area where you can kind of chill and smoke, and it was bring your own alcohol because they didn't serve alcohol, but they did serve food. I never saw anyone ever in there drink a bottle of water. But ballroom was happening and growing in that next building, and so we were all just kind of able to see different ways to show up as a queer and a gay person. Because of Pride, because of these places, we could explore our sensibilities and our sexuality and experience a world that was very gay, very Black, very trans, very queer, very ghetto, a world that felt as segregated as the city. And for me, at this time, I got a phone, I got a job, I had a girlfriend, and I was a stud, and all my friends were studs, and I just remember like it was yesterday, just having this access to nightlife in Baltimore in a way that I know I've learned that our elders paved the way for. And so this is a very important clip. I'll show you, I'll just play it so you can see why.
What up? That time again for You Hear It First. Now this week we got something extra special for you guys. Instead of showing love to just one artist, we're handing the mic to a whole entire movement. The Baltimore club music, where the dancers are.
So if you know, this is MTV and that's Sway. We all watched this growing up. So it was I remember watching this on TV.
Next revolution, and here to show us around is B Moore's club queen herself, DJ K Swift. Check this out.
Hey, what's up? It's your girl K Swift in Baltimore. About to give you a taste of the Baltimore club music, which is blowing up right now. The first stop I gotta do is a high school party that I gotta personally DJ. So I want y'all to come on and roll with.
So I like to note that K Swift is the one that kind of really kept club mix alive, and it kind of died when she passed on. But this is Paradox.
In Baltimore, when you step in the club, it's all about owning the floor. Born out of the 80s and heavily influenced by British breakbeats and Miami bass, Baltimore club music's first big splash came in 1991 when DJ Frank Ski of the rap group Two Hype Brothers and the Dog produced Doodoo Brown. Brown, the brand new brother in town. Now, a new generation of rappers like Young Leak are...
So that's available online if you want to see, but I just kind of wanted to show you how Baltimore's nightlife was exploding at one point. And Wayne Davis, who is gay, who has worked at a number of clubs and opened a number of clubs, he said that he modeled the Paradox sound system, especially after sound systems in New York. And apparently, word on the street along the coast is that the Paradox had the best sound system on the East Coast. And people from all over, kind of like the East Coast, including like the Deep South, used to come to Baltimore just to go to the Paradox. So this is me in Club One, and my friends at the time. And so much of the film, so I narrate the film, and a lot of the film is kind of like me looking back at my memories and me kind of narrating the different histories that are happening in nightlife, ones that I did not live, but the film kind of takes off like in the early 2000s when we were outside. This is definitely a Monday night because this is a Monday night outfit. I know what time this was, and luckily this was one of Camille's parties. This was at Club One. She always had a photographer, so there's a lot of material that is available. But I like to say I remember it like it was yesterday, and it was a lot of bad fashions, a lot of experimenting, a lot of body paint, a lot of really just exploring who we were and who we wanted to be and making mistakes and, like being messy, but ultimately we had a good time, and it was girls kissing girls and boys kissing boys. I remember at the docks because people from all over would come to the dock. So you saw different kinds of sexuality. You saw different kinds of forms of intimacy. I remember being at the docks and seeing two studs together, and I'm like, Because just like every other community of people, there are binaries, there are like strict rules, there are don't touch me's, and so like we have all of these norms, and club life really kind of like opened my mind to what is possible for me as a person, what is possible for my spirit. Fuck me, I'm famous. Sorry. This is my sister here, the one with the black pants. I hated those pants, but we wore them all the time. You can't really tell, but we really look like twins. So we spent a long time also partying together. But there was a lot of cheetah print and lace and club hopping at night and after hours and strippers and films and studs and dykes and doms and butch queens, femme queens, boys kissing boys, girls kissing girls, terrible photographs, pastel lipsticks, bad lighting, bad watermarks. This is a terrible watermark. And this was at Club Uzo's, which was deep Bel Air Road, but I mean, there was somewhere to go every night, and a lot of these promoters really made sure we had somewhere to go. This is also Club Uzo's, and I'm like, based on how everyone's dressed, it's like, are you straight from Hawaii? Are you coming from a job interview? Like, what's really happening in the photo? And so when I look back at it, I'm like, wow, this was such a time where we were just trying to be our free queer gay selves. This is Andre, who Ben introduced me to. Ben has been really helpful with a lot of helping me understand the material and kind of understanding nightlife outside of my experience.
I was 18. My first venture into the gay clubs with my friend that I had met in high school, who was about 3 years younger than me. I was 18 and he was 15 or 16. He told me about the gay clubs. I said, oh, okay, that sounds interesting. So I went over to his house in the county and we caught the long bus ride downtown and met him there. It was a place called Mary's on Cathedral Street. That was my initiation into the gay bars and nightclubs. And it was just a very small place, and you go in and you go downstairs, and then it's like, it has a little bar with the bartender serving. Had some booths sitting around the dance floor, and there's a small space in the middle of all that where you could sit and dance. And it was just a joy to go in and be able to dance with, of course, he and I danced the different songs together, but to be able to dance with another male.
I refer to that all the time because I know that I would not be here without him and without them. And I think that we take for granted, I think for a long time we took for granted, we didn't know what we had, because now you look around, it has kind of disappeared. And not only has it disappeared, I spent the last almost 5 years going through periodicals, and so much of Black gay life is so reduced to going to City Hall or a hate crime. It's not explored in ways in which it deserves. And so there's a lot of, this film is driven by obviously passion and me wanting to do this, but it's also driven, I'm very frustrated and very just saddened how ignored people's lives and humanities really have been. And so when I listen to Andre, and when I listen to the elders especially, it always grounds me in that this is work that I should be doing. And I think that I've kind of been, I think that me going to Buns at 12 kind of prepared me for this film. And so often I call Andre and Lewis and the elders, and I just call them to say thank you, because they fought for us at City Hall, for us to have a pride, for us to have rights, for me to be able to go out and have a great time, shake my tail, hang out with my friends, have a girlfriend or two or three, comfortably dress masculine, and comfortably be affectionate to other women in public. Like, it happened because of them, and I don't take that for granted. So I spend a lot of time at the library making a lot of scans because I'm not finished. Right now, I'm not finished with the going through the material, and they have a lot of the kind of like publications. And I'm not quite looking for anything in the publications. I'm just really looking to see what's missing. And there are a lot of people whom I know who deserve to be talked about, who deserve to be acknowledged, who are missing. And so this is me in special collections kind of. This is the scanner that I use. I scanned like maybe like 70 photographs. 70 flyers. And this is me scanning some of the newspapers to essentially go back. Because in the narration, I'm writing a script. And I'm writing a script for other folks, kind of like a draft. And so I spend, right now, right now I'm at this place where we done some filming. We just did some street interviews this summer, which was incredible. The flyer was shared, it went viral, it was like 27,000 impressions. And I have my phone number on there. I have a burner phone. I have my phone number on there, and I got a lot of calls from some characters. And a lot of them are not Black, but I still value what they have to say so much. And so now I'm thinking there has to be some sort of bank or some sort of other project that includes everybody, because to me that's important, because the focal point for this film is Black Baltimore, but I kind of want everyone to be included in this LGBTQ history kind of framework, because I think that when we tell the stories of ourselves, we tell the stories of others.
Okay, in the northern city, there's another set of bars around Greenmount and 33rd Street. One is the Porthole and on Gorsuch and Greenmount, and then around the corner at 32nd and Greenmount was the After Dark was in the basement, and the top street level was the office. We had some particular problems at the late 70s with those particular bars, because they wanted to card the Black patrons more, and plus charge us, an entrance fee of like.
And so,
okay, in the northern section of this. Okay, in the northern section of the city.
And so when I heard him say that, it made me think about how I've gotten also into a lot of debates and arguments with people who are like, there were Black people at the club. There were, like I was around Black people, and I'm like, I'm sure you were, because this is a Black city, but I think that people are somewhat upset at the fact that a lot of our experiences in nightlife were segregated. We live in the South. We live in Baltimore. It's segregated. It's block by block. And so when he said that, it made me think about kind of the segregation in the papers. The Alternative, which I've looked at, there were really ever ads for Black clubs, primarily the Paradox and Club Buns. And the Paradox has been doing gay nights since the 90s, sorry. And even then, when there was an advertisement, it was for the Hippo and Hip Hop Night. And I'm pretty sure Hip Hop Night was for the Black people. Because again, none of us knew that the Hippo operated all these other days. Bingo, drag night, all of these things. And I'm like, what was advertised to us was Hip Hop Night. And you would go in if you're underage, and they would stamp you, and then you would lick your hand, do this, and just pray for the best. And we love Hip Hop Night. And Hip Hop Night was like our night, but looking back, it just was only our night. And I find that a lot of clubs, a lot of the periodicals, a lot of just kind of like the activities around gay pride and gay Baltimore just did not advertise to Black people and made sure that we saw it. Because again, the pride we knew about was at Buns, and that was the pride we wanted to be at. And then that's where we went and that's where we showed up. And so then when Pride started to change, money was moved and these people left, and then the GLCCB changed their name and all of these things, and Pride went from this neighborhood to that neighborhood, which I have some issue with because we don't really have a gayborhood. And they try to call Charles Village Station North the gayborhood, and I know why, and it's really only because there's activity of sex workers outside. And so it's just kind of like we don't actually have a gayborhood, because I understand, especially with Ben's research, that the migration of gay communities in these particular places. But now I'm like looking around and I'm like, there's not really a lot that is centering us. And so I kind of want to talk a little bit about ballroom, because ballroom kind of feels like the extension of nightlife. Has anyone in here ever been to a ball? Raise your hand. Okay, great. I go to balls pretty often. I love balls. If you know Aya from Baltimore Safe Haven, she often throws balls in order to fundraise. But ballroom now is kind of taken on. There's mainstream ballroom and there's Kiki. Mainstream is kind of like the icons, and if you want to compete against them, where there's big money. And then Kikis are kind of like the younger crowd, kind of rooted more into like activism or some like sort of social justice. But ballroom is kind of, to me, like a new wave of nightlife. So Gatsby's was just sold. And Leroy, who did Third Saturdays at the Paradox, and Leroy is definitely maybe in his 50s or 60s. I think he's ready to retire. But he used to have an after hour at Gatsby's that ended at 6 o'clock in the morning, and that started at 5. And there will oftentimes be balls before or balls doing it, and then you would go there. But a lot of what he did with Gatsby's was kind of like, you know, if you know. I only found out because I photographed some trans women for Shea Moisture and Marsha P. Johnson project, and they was telling me that Gatsby's existed, and I went and I had a great time. But it's like one of those places that you only know if you know. And so now that that's not happening, I don't really know what's really happening. I think that's the part of the story. I'm trying to figure out how to end the story, how to end the film, because I'm not sure. But ballroom is like taking off in a lot of places, especially because of polls, and a lot of people are very new to Paris is Burning. And so ballroom is very much so like where you can kind of go and see people compete and then also party at the end. And this is just an old flyer that I scanned that was ballroom at the Paradox. And you can kind of see the legends and the statements, meaning like the people who were competing. There's runway, there's femme queen, there's body, there's face. The categories kind of extend a lot more because identities change and sensualities change. And so this is just one of the many flyers that I have digitized and collected. And so outside of the film, I mean, I photograph a lot of queer people. I photograph a lot of trans women, a lot of trans people, a lot of gay folk, because I think I'm also just interested in ensuring that we have a place in history. And there's a lot of erasure happening. I kind of see it happening with the elders. You know, like we're having gay elders pass on and kind of move on, and there's like some of these people deserve streets or plaque or something. And I know that a lot of this information isn't known. And a lot of it I only found out by reading periodicals and talking to them and listening to the oral histories and like interviewing people. And this person is introducing me to their uncle and they're introducing me to their aunt. And so a lot of this information I know is not accessible, but I think it is my duty to start to bring all of us into the fold and kind of connect us and really talk about our samenesses and our differences. And so this is just these are just 2 photographs out of my like archive that I build. This is at a ball. This is in the BMA's collection. This was at a ball in New York. I traveled with some girls who are in the Kiki scene here to New York to participate in Alpha Omega. If you want to see more about balls and ballroom history, just look at Ballroom Throwbacks on YouTube. A lot of people's humble beginnings start at Ballroom Throwbacks, and they have videos dating back to like when YouTube was first made. And these are two icons in ballroom, and they're mainstream. And so a lot of times, I think as an archivist, I'm always thinking about the functionality of archives. How can archives show up differently in the world? You know, a lot of times they're in like a box stored somewhere, or at a church stored somewhere, or under your grandmother's bed, and you don't know until the house is ready to be sold. And so a lot of times with the material that I make and I collect, I kind of try to create artworks with the material, but also kind of like around the themes of the material, to just kind of initiate a way to give archives a different functionality, kind of showing up in artwork, kind of showing up in experimental film, just trying to really think creatively about the many different lives and forms that archives can have. I think it's at the ball. This is in New York, so you can kind of see all of the people. Big money here. So I think that ballroom is kind of like the new form of nightlife for queer people, because of its importance, also because of its history, and there are so many icons. There are so many hands into ballrooms. There are the people who pay for it. There are the people who fundraise for it, the commentators, the people who organize, the judges. It's like this kind of like beautiful community that's centered in movement and also kind of like winning. And so I like to tell people that ballroom is like breakdancing. They both have similar forms of movement, but also they both were created so you wouldn't, I guess, rely on physical violence. You could just outdo someone with your movement of your body. And so with ballroom, it's like you win the battle or the war with the person when you beat them in a category, or when you win the big money, or when you show up as your best self. And so ballroom it's a very active community. And some places, in smaller places like Charlotte, I don't actually think that LA has a ballroom community, but maybe they do. But it's a global phenomenon that really does bring us all together, and I think that it's becoming the new wave of nightlife. So this is from a ball I threw at the Enoch Pratt Library, which was a handful, but it worked out. And the way he kind of vogues is very old school. This is the way that they move in Paris and Bernie. It's been refined and remixed and reformed so much. But I did this because I was like, well, I don't want to give her another presentation. Let's have a ball. And there was a lot of drama because I don't think that they quite understood what ball was. I think that they thought that ball was drag. And I'm like, it's not. It's different, and a lot of people are walking in categories that solely depict who they are. There's not like I throw on a thing. It's like I am showing you who I am. So there are like many different dynamics between ballroom and drag. I think this is a little more. I like her. This is the Kiki scene. You can kind of tell that it's younger. A lot of times in balls, you just have them anywhere. Because there are not a lot of space, there are not a lot of places that is accepting, a lot of places that we can often trust. And so they kind of happen wherever. And so this is the Kiki scene. You kind of tell it's a little bit more, it's a little less glamorous than the one in New York, where there's big money. This was actually at the Downtown Cultural Arts Center, and Aya did this. And the beautiful thing about a lot of this Kiki scene balls is that they usually have like training. So if you get some sort of HIV testing, you get in for free. If you do the, If you do the Narcan training, you kind of get in for free too. So there's this kind of like initiative for safe practices of whatever you may practice. And so I'm about to finish up, but these are 2 flyers. The one is just seeking submissions that I've had for a while, where people could just send photos or ask questions. Because again, so much of the history that I'm looking for is not documented. And if it is, it's in someone's personal archive and I haven't met them yet, or I have to like stalk them down. I stalked one person for like 3 years and reached out to their cousin on Facebook. And you know, I hate social media, but Facebook is like the new Yellow Pages. You just gotta keep it. You just gotta keep it. You never know who's there, and I find a lot of people there, and I've received a lot of support from people on Facebook. And this is what I put 60 flyers around Baltimore, and I got some crazy stories and some characters. And then like also some people are like, I'm sorry, I can't come. I have to go back into recovery. Like there is just a spectrum of gay Baltimore that called me. And emailed me. And so I just didn't get a grant, but I do have a tiny bit of funding coming where I'm going to do another round of street interviews. And the reason of doing the street interviews, is anyone familiar with, do we got any Sex and the City lovers here? Okay, I love Sex and the City. Do you remember the Modelizer episode, which was like the second episode where the guys only date models? And what was her name? The one that ran for mayor or something? Cynthia Nixon, yes. She went out with a guy who only date models, and she was really upset. And so the first 2 seasons of Sex and the City is really incredible to me. I think most films and most episodic shows between like before 2005 are like really, really great. And the beautiful thing I love about Sex and the City is that the first 2 seasons, they use street interviews to support the main narrative and the main character. So imagine Carrie is at the computer and she's like, is it true? Guys only date models? And then the next frame is this guy working out and he's like, yeah, I love models. And then the next frame, it was this guy at dinner who was like eating his food, and he's eating his food with the mouthful, and he's like, yeah, models are easy. They don't talk. And so there's just these really quick cuts to street interviews that ultimately answer the question that Curry answers. And it's just something so beautiful about the street interviews. And also too, what I realize is that it allows you to have a backdrop of Baltimore, because most interviews for documentaries are inside. And so you get to see the backdrop of Baltimore, and you get an introduction to all of the characters of Baltimore, because we're all very different. And so I'm pulling from like the things that I love to really start to visually contextualize the story.
That as much as
okay, and so this is a crazy clip right here, but this is the sizzle for fundraising. Because we did some filming, we're gonna redo the sizzle, but this is my final slide. And before that, I'd like to say my interest simply started because everything disappeared, and I had questions with no answers in sight. I'd run into old friends, old girlfriends. I'd ride past a place, and for the 100th time, I'll go down memory lane to anyone who's willing to lend an ear and say, that used to be such and such, or she used to mess with such and such. It seemed like the world moved on business as usual, while many of us realized the lights were shut off and the doors were locked, despite many of us still standing in line to get in. All of us were living in the moment, not knowing that that moment would disappear. I think the part that makes me sad and often unhappy while working on this is just, again, the elders just unacknowledged for so long. Their lives of light, care, love, bravery, radicalism, movement, solidarity, freedom, and erasure just reduced over and over again by mainstream and local media. While it breaks my heart, I'm committed to preserving our lives, handling the material and immaterial with much care, attentiveness, and deep regard. My effort and the work followed after seeing Buns officially knocked down. That was my first. That was like my first place to understanding who I was and trying to figure out who I wanted to be. It showed me glimpses of a world that was very gay, very black, very trans, very ghetto. Buns made it clear that I was not alone, and many of us who committed to carving out space to be those exact things. We became fairies, unicorns, boys, girls, whatever we wanted to be. We completely transcended gender identities. We became everything we dreamed of, couldn't imagine, and never saw on television.
That as much as or is homosexual or gay, it could be your friend, your neighbor, or your son or daughter. What does it mean to be gay?
In the 70s, back then, gay wasn't a household word. So it was a place of comfort. After working all week long in your job, your straight environment, or dealing with family, you could come to the bars on the weekend and let your hair down.
My first gay club was Buns, and my first time at Buns was just like, it was magical. Like if you didn't grace Buns, you wasn't really one of them ones.
I was still in high school, sneaking in club Buns. I wasn't even supposed to be in there.
Back in the day, they used to do high school parties. That was my only experience with Paradox. But that Saturday just had a different type of vibe, maybe just because of a lot of women, but it was just, I think the word may be liberation.
My first night being there is just like, wow, everybody's gay.
It was a lot of different types of gay that I've never seen before.
My friend Donald took me to Mary's. It was a joy. It was just like a whole brand new world. Being able to go in there and dance with another guy. And it was just a freedom that you had never had before.
So we would dance for like 6 or 7 hours straight, and we'd come out in the morning and we were sweating and everything.
I need to find out what gay life is about.
They do like the fake IDs, but honestly, I don't think they were really like pressing up on us because I think everybody understood that was a safe space for us.
That's the presentation.
Why don't you stay up there?
Okay. Yeah, it's fine.
Shan, thank you so much. That was really fantastic, and I think brought together so much of what we've been talking about today. I'm going to open it up for questions, and I can come to you with the mic.
I have a very, very small question, and I should probably already know the answer to it. The photograph that's on the flyer, where is that?
Which one?
The second to last slide.
And
on the left, yeah.
It's in New York. It's at the Ball in New York. Okay. Yeah. Which I would recommend. There's big money. It's very, very extravagant. It is an entirely different world.
Congratulations, Shan.
Thanks. I hope it was worth it.
This was so good. And I don't know. I feel like I'm talking directly to you in front of all these people now.
You are. We go back.
Because I remember you in that sweater vest up the village. And it's so many people in them photos like, oh, that's such and such. That's such and such. Man.
What a time.
What a time. We're old. It's really wild.
Old.
Oh, my God.
And I miss it. I miss it.
When you said 5 seasons, my mind was blown. Because I was telling somebody, I was like, and I wasn't, Baltimore is so gay. Because I wasn't gay in high school, but my 2 cousins were, and we went outside with them.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't even know everything was gay, and then you realize, like, oh, this is gay. You just think it's outside, you know. But the 5 Seasons, that's one of them ones that people don't be talking
Everybody,
about. But
a lot of people wasn't there. It was
high
an
school?
Ethiopian restaurant.
I did not know that until you said that.
I didn't know until I saw this. If you drive by, just look at the sign, the big sign that has all the businesses.
I believe you. I know it was a restaurant, but anyway, I'm sorry. I guess my question is, you had mentioned very briefly that you said Park Heights is the gayest like place in Baltimore, and I want to know more about that. And you talked about not having a neighborhood, and I'm like, this is more work for you. But I'm like, are you going to like start a petition to make Park Heights the neighborhood?
Honestly, Park Heights makes me sad because I rode by and saw the gentrification street signs. And I'm born in Park Heights. I used to work at Callow Hill Aquatic Center. I was a lifeguard. My grandmother still lives there, and that neighborhood has been wiped out. And I watched it happen. I watched Park Heights happen, and I watched Middle East happen. And those are people I knew and went to school with. So I have a really challenging relationship to what's happening in Park Heights. I say that Park Heights is very gay because, I'm adopted, and I met my biological family much later in my life, and it was in middle school when I was thinking about trying to figure out if I was gay or not. And my sister is gay. She touches on the line of gay, bisexual. I don't really know half the time. But there was Northwestern. Douglas is kind of like at the beginning of Park Heights. There's all these recreation centers. Like Park Heights is such a large, vast neighborhood. And it's the neighborhood that kind of connects you to Gwen Oak, Randallstown, Liberty Heights. And so Park Heights, Royce and Ricestown was like the place where we would all meet to go to the club. And we used to be like 70 deep. Like this person lives in Randallstown, she has her mom's car. This person caught the subway, so they can't stay at Buns too long because the last train on the subway is at 12 o'clock. We're walking people to the bus stop, waiting for them to get on the bus because we've been at the Paradox all night. We didn't know what time it was because we didn't have phones. I had like a Coolpix camera that was like 2 megapixels. And so I say that Park Heights is probably the gayest neighborhood because I think that it's such a large neighborhood, and there are parts of West Baltimore that people wouldn't consider Park Heights, but I consider Park Heights like all the way to Northern Parkway. And past Pimlico, and on the east past like a few blocks from Gwen Oak. And so it's a bias assumption, but I think because most of my experience was with gay people in Park Heights. I also been catching the bus since I was like a child, and I dated a bunch of girls from different neighborhoods. So I can say I'm pretty familiar with the city. I mean, maybe not now because a lot has changed, but I used to jump from city to city. I'm in Patapsco, I'm in Cherry Hill, I'm in these different places. And Park Heights just had a different kind of gay community that I experienced that I didn't experience in other places and I didn't really know. There's also like a lot of Park Heights was like where a lot of black families migrated after, like my grandparents came here from Lynchburg, Virginia, and moved to Sandtown. And I think the come up from Sandtown was Park Heights. Because you can kind of have a yard, you kind of have a porch, like the infrastructure was a little different and it was kind of closer to the county. And it had a lot of schools, a lot of public schools. And so I feel like Park Heights is very dense, and it's very dense with queer and gay people. I can't say now, but before it was like where we all would meet. The ones that are in the balls, the ones that are in the marching bands, the fashion ones, the ones you go to school with, the girls from the county, the guys from the county. Like it was like the place where I saw my first of everything when it comes to identity. There were always trans people around, but we just called them their name and they were family, and there were always trans women with their bodies done, like dolled up, ready to go. Garrison. That whole strip of Garrison is just sex workers. So it's just, I think that neighborhood just really had a lot of gay people, a lot of black gay people especially, because it just felt like the next thing after. It's like where your parents might have lived or been born. I mean, I was born in Park Heights, right off of Hilton Parkway. And so, yeah, I like to think that because my memory serves me that way. No. No.
We have another question back here.
This was beautiful. I feel like you connected a lot of dots that I didn't even realize I was sort of living within, going to school in Baltimore City, the subway, the anthropological movements, the community, what was hidden, and all these things. And I feel like when I think about conscientization, which is just coming aware of like sort of like the world you're living in and being able to translate the world through the word, in your own way of just like coming to being and transcending everything that like may hold you back, it can happen many times. And I feel like you're on another cuff of the many transcendent moments that you've already had to, be in this moment. And when you think about like the identity formation that happens in the public school system, because you take me back to a lot of students that, I was peers with, and I didn't necessarily understand the world they were living in, the king or queen they were sort of walking into, and the crowd they were leading, the culture they were holding down. And I'm seeing that all like right now and thinking back. So I feel like if we had young people to hear it today, it would have unlocked so much in how they view themselves, how they could take hold of it. And I'm very excited, for your movie to come out. But I guess my question to you is, as someone that is older now, what could you give to the young people currently, not just in the public school system, but in Baltimore, to sort of come into, themselves and understanding that a lot of the things that you had that nurtured that are gone?
Thank you for that. I like to say nightlife raised us and it saved our lives. My friend Pretty, who is in the film, she said to me she used to work at Shake and Bake, and in Shake and Bake, the employees used to make fun of this young gay kid who was probably like 16, and she might have been like 20 or something. And she said, she used to feel bad, but whatever. And she said she saw him at the Paradox. And she saw him at the Paradox, and he was like a full-blown trans woman. And she was just kind of like, yo. Like, she wanted to intervene, and her friend was like, yo, don't. Like, and she realized that kid needed the Paradox. And all of us are that kid. Like, we needed a place that felt like we could just be whatever we wanted to be. I'm standing here right now because of nightlife in Baltimore, being able to dance, being able to move, being able to build a confidence to talk to girls, being able to understand my aesthetic, my identity, and to reinvent that all the time. And so I think one of the things that I can give is, one, this film. And also, two, I used to have, I miss when Red Emma's was on Maryland, because it just populated so many different kinds of people, including kids and queer kids. And I remember this young girl from Weston used to come, and I think that she was a little shocked to see me because she was a little confused, because I'm a little artsy, like I'm a little fashionable here and there. And she used to ask me these very intimate, personal questions, and I used to answer them because I knew she needed to hear it. And I remember one time she was like, would you wear a dress? And I was like, if the dress is Bottega, yes. Like, yeah, I would. And so I often come across young teens who see me, because we don't have any, maybe now it's a little different, but there were no examples on how to be. I think the first person I knew that was gay on television was Ricky Martin. And Queen Latifah wasn't out. The Brat we thought was gay, but she had that video with Tyrese in a bikini. And it confused us. Like, no one was openly queer and gay and saying to us, I see you, we're alike. We didn't witness that. I didn't witness it in my neighborhood, and I didn't witness it on television. So I think that the kids have a different kind of access to be able to identify. You know, like trans people are winning Oscars and Emmys and different things. And so I think ultimately this film and just trying to find ways to communicate to them through archives, through art, through photography, through one-on-one conversations, and just trying to show up in communities that I'm a part of and communities that are queer who need solidarity and support. Because a lot of the girls on the Kiki scene are young, and I try to find ways to support them.
Thank you so much for this presentation, and I wish you the best of luck with the film. It really is so interesting. I've learned a lot. I do have a question. When I did the research on the Amos Badacher book, he photographed in 2 black LGBTQ bars. One was called the Sportsman's Lounge, and the other one was called the 14 Karat Club. In your research, did you find anything about those clubs?
I didn't, but I think when it comes to those kind of deep cuts of clubs that I've never heard, I always refer to Ben.
14 Karat Cabaret, I'm hearing.
Okay, so yeah, I'm the only one working on this. So I'm very behind on a lot of the, I guess, kind of contextualizing and understand the material that I have. But a lot of times if I have those kinds of questions, I refer to Ben's material because Ben has this extensive, beautiful binder of places and locations and sites that I've never heard of, because I understand that Louis and Andre and those folks in the 70s had a much different experience than I did when I started going out in 2000. And I've talked to the promoters who are from the 2000s, because at this, I'm 14 and they're like in their mid-20s, early 30s. And so I realize that every generation has a different entry point and a different experience. But to answer your question, I haven't heard of them. I know they're in my binder, but I always refer, Ben's going to be in the film answering these questions. Because what I tell everybody is that we have to tell this story together. I'm willing to do the back end part, the invisible work, but this is a story that we all tell together. And so just like I interview Louis and Andre, Ben's coming soon. Because, you know, like I only have one kind of experience. And I only have started to understand and really realize all the things that happen for me to have that experience. And so those things are very important, obviously, and I know that I can't tell them. So Ben's the person.
Thank you so much, Shan. I want to thank everybody for being here. We're about to hear an announcement that the library is closing at 5:00. Before we do that, I had this vision when you were talking about will Park Heights become a designated historical area? And I was thinking about Kate's research and Ben's research and James talking about this bigger transatlantic network that you can trace from just one person. And I can't remember who said it, but the idea of the very subjective and personal gay geographies of like, this is the street, this is the corner, this is where I kissed that person, this is where this happened. And I just like had this vision of like a big layered collective overlapping map of Baltimore that everybody's little personal moment was on, like intersecting with all the places that used to be there and that aren't anymore. And if you start to like actually visualize that, how full it gets. And I think what you said about like no one person can tell this story alone is like, that's the thing, right? And no one archives should contain it. That's not the role, and it doesn't belong to any one person either. So I'm just really grateful we could come together today in community. I invite you to take some snacks on the way out. If you want to carry on the conversation, once again, meet us at the club car at 5:30. But I'm sure, once you exit the library, there's this sort of nice plaza. The sky looks beautiful this time of day. So if you want to continue the conversation sort of outside, feel free. And thank you all so much for coming today. And thanks to our speakers, our moderators, who are fantastic.